Hi everyone, before we go into the podcast, I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm super grateful for your continued loyalty and support. If you could do me a quick favour, if you could give me a review on Apple Podcasts, it really helps the algorithm and it will help this podcast go up the lists. If there are any subjects or topics that you want me to cover, then please do reach out to me on DM on LinkedIn and I will do my best to find the best guest for that subject or topic. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. Get ready to learn from others' successes and failures. Today we have Tracey Bissett, who is a financial coach for young adults and entrepreneurs. Hello, Tracey. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining. So let's go straight into it. So your education, you're a very educated person. So you've done a degree in commerce and finance, you did an MBA in finance and marketing, and then you did qualifications in Harvard and at, is it Centennial College? Centennial College, thank you. So what made you choose finance and commerce for your degree?
Oh, ever since I was a little kid, I absolutely loved money. 6, 7 years old, I realized very quickly that you could use money as a tool. So I thought that I had a few little businesses as a kid and as a teenager. I was involved with junior achievement going through high school, and that was a really great learning experience for me to learn how companies worked and functioned. So for me, that was the calling. I knew I wanted to be in business and wasn't exactly sure if I would have my own business, but I wanted to learn about that. My dad was a banker, so I was really familiar with working adjacent or supporting entrepreneurs and companies. So business was always in the cards. And as you mentioned, I have my BCom and my MBA. And then when I started working at TD Bank, everybody I knew was doing their chartered financial analyst designation. So I went on to do that while I was working. I hopped on the bandwagon. So definitely not something just to pursue lightly. I would say for anybody listening, it's a lot of work.
Absolutely. So I'm interested in your professional qualifications. Which professional qualifications did you do at TD?
It's chartered financial analyst designation. So I was doing it part-time while I was working. And for those who know the program, there's 3 levels of study. You study at home or through a prep provider, and then you have exams. And the goal is to do it sequentially, and it only takes 3 years, but that's not generally the way it goes. So it took me a few more years than that, but certainly something I'm really proud of in my life for sticking with it and getting that designation.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So you did the degree in finance, and then what made you jump relatively quickly into an MBA? What was it your company was it TD that you were working with, or was it something that you felt you needed for yourself, for your confidence or your ability to be able to analyze situations?
So neither, actually. I wanted to be a lawyer. And they had a combined law MBA program. And so I applied, and it was obviously a really competitive program. I got on the wait list for the law school. I was number 11 in my year. So I thought, well, okay. And the wait list didn't move. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to go and start my MBA, and then I'm going to try again once I'm in my MBA. Right. And fortunately, it wasn't in the cards. So came out with the MBA, but not a law degree. And I imagine that's how things were supposed to unfold. But that was the original motivation to do those programs together.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. We're going to go into your sort of education and you as a financial educator and a professor as well. But you got very prestigious. You went to Harvard for the teaching qualifications. Was that the best school you could get? What was your motivation? Obviously, Harvard's a great school, but like, what made you edge towards teaching qualifications at Harvard?
So I was a business professional for all those years, and then I was moving into teaching, and certainly I was a business professional who taught. And so I wanted to bring up my skill set on the teaching side. So Harvard was offering, it's a short course that they have it, 8-week program, 8 to 10 hours a week, really, intensive in terms of getting that stuff done. But I thought, if I'm going to learn how to be a great professor, I want to learn from the best. And so that's what drew me to that. And really great experience, because you're getting to work with students all around the globe, which was really interesting and great quality instruction. So that was almost a year ago. So really recent in my history.
Okay. Well, we'll go into your teaching. We'll go deep into that. But so let's start at your first role was at BMO Financial Group. So how did you get the role? Was it a graduate scheme?
No, my father was working at BMO, and so had the opportunity to, when they were looking for summer students, to be able to throw my name in the ring. Certainly that stuff doesn't happen too much anymore, but was a really great opportunity to learn about banking, and had a really diverse role. I got to work in this level, if you could imagine it. So in downtown Toronto, in Canada, where I am, we have big skyscraper buildings, but I was working 3 levels below the ground in this kind of processing place where they did things with different bank statements. They supported commercial clients. They did investments. And I was there to support whoever was going on vacation. And so that was my introduction to banking. So pretty much job shadowing somebody and then sitting in their desk while they went away. And then I would shadow somebody else. So really great introduction. But very interesting to be working below the ground and seeing all these people accomplishing all these things.
That's really interesting. So let's just go back, because you spent 15 years at TD. And before we go into that, so do you think your father's influence as a banker himself influenced you joining the same industry?
I do. He's a very curious person. He would always be telling us about the companies that he was working with and supporting, the different tours he would go on of their premises, their factories, all those different operations. And I'm very curious as well. And so I was excited about that prospect of being able to support entrepreneurs. I had at that point a couple small little businesses when I was a teenager and was really excited about business. So I thought, I like numbers. I like finance. This would be a good way to put all of those things together. And I only imagined I'd work at TD for probably 1 or 2 years. In my mind, I was thinking, I'll probably go and work with one of these companies that I get to know, or maybe I'll go off and do something else. And then fast forward, you have 15 years in one place and time goes by.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent about 12, 13 years at PwC before I left. And yeah, time does fly. Once you're moving up the grades, and it looks like you had a really successful career. You went up the grades relatively regularly and relatively quickly to associate vice president. But why did you stay so long at TD?
Couple reasons. One, really great customers that I love supporting. For probably the first half of my career, it was directly working with them, which was very fun. You get to meet all kinds of different people, learn about all kinds of different industries, and really make an impact on their business. The second half of my career was more behind the scenes, because there was people in between me and the customers. So I was still supporting them and being able to use my experience to help them. The second thing was the people that I worked with, my colleagues, really great people. And every department that I worked in, I made some absolute best friends that I will have for life. And so it was a really great work experience. I was continually challenged. I was recognized for my contributions, and as you mentioned, continued to advance. And then when I was an AVP, Associate Vice President, I was able to work with learning and development and actually develop courses and teach newer lenders who are working with entrepreneurs. How do you assess companies? How do you put into practice these financial things you learn in school? And so that was really rewarding for me to be able to help people coming up gain from my experience and be able to make sense of the stuff that they didn't quite know yet or hadn't put their fingers on. So really great overall, great people as customers, great colleagues, great advancement, and then the opportunity to give back, both from experience standpoint, but also lots of opportunity for volunteering for different organizations, and volunteering with financial literacy organizations was a big part of that. And I really enjoyed that too.
Because it sounds like that was the spawn for your business, your business where you are currently now at Financial Fitness. So was that a period of your life where you felt that you wanted to educate, you wanted to teach people, you wanted to bring the next generation of bankers or entrepreneurs through?
So it didn't unfold that lovely. As you can imagine, in financial services, especially in Canada, there's always lots of downsizing. And so Boston Consulting Group came in and did a review. They took out some layers. And so I received a really fair exit package from the bank. And so I actually took my time and thought about what would I like to do. And so I thought about, I can go back really quickly, get another role in a senior position as I had at a different bank. Or could I put all the things I like together, the teaching, the supporting young people, supporting entrepreneurs, educating, doing some consulting? Could I package all of that up? And so that's what I did and started Bissett Financial Fitness.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe, and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
Absolutely. So after your break, is that when you took up as an instructor at the McMaster University? Yes.
So I really enjoyed my time working with human resources and creating courses and teaching younger lenders. So I thought, how can I do that? So McMaster is a prominent university in Canada. So I looked to them. At the same time, I was also able to do kind of one course with McMaster and one course with Centennial College. And now I'm learning something new. I'm teaching the things that I already know, corporate finance and things about business. But now I'm figuring out how to be a teacher in a classroom, which is a new experience for me.
And how was that? So you're a professor at Centennial College now. Are you what is it like teaching it? Like, did you find it quite a struggle sort of communicating, or did you find it all very easy being able to communicate quite complicated financial definitions and meanings and things?
That's always been one of my strengths, is to be able to take complex things and break them into simple parts. So that part I really enjoyed. I'm able to explain things in multiple ways, come up with examples. I'm a very direct person, so I was doing a good job in the classroom at setting expectations. This is what we do here. This is how we do it. If you have trouble, here's what happens. So getting used to that. But then it was that learning curve around who's the student population? What are their prior experiences? What are they going to offer up to complement what I'm teaching them? Because so many of the students I teach at Centennial especially are international in background. I would say 99% of the students I teach are international. They are graduate students, so they're coming with already sometimes multiple degrees and multiple years of experience. And so really interesting for me, because it was opening up the world more to me. I was learning so much about my students and what they were doing, and many of them are coming to Canada to make a better life from where they're coming from.
That's really interesting. So this is a no-brainer sort of question, but do you find that it's rewarding working with younger people? Because we're going to go into your current business where you help young entrepreneurs and young adults, but what is it? I'm assuming it is, you find it rewarding working with the sort of next generation.
I do, and able to share my experience so people can make some new missteps. They can learn from my experience and just to help navigate, especially the international students, because they didn't grow up in a Canadian banking system. And I'm working in the School of Business teaching students to become financial planners. So they don't know yet Canadian banking system. So understanding the nuances of that, understanding while it might seem like a very big industry in Canada, and it's very small because we only have 5 major banks. So if you get to know people in one organization, like I can probably get to anybody in financial services in Canada between one or two contacts, and I'm going to be to the person. So helping them understand how all of that works, how the networking works is extremely important, because without those prior relationships, they're really starting from scratch. And so I share certainly the content, but then being able to help them with the other stuff that's actually going to help them do the networking, land the jobs, advance in their careers. That's really important to me as well. And in the graduate program, we see people ages probably low 20s all the way up to people in their 50s. So it's a really wide age group.
What's the challenges? Because I would imagine there's quite a big challenges between a 50-year-old and a millennial at sort of 18 or 19 or 20. What challenges do you have with the scope of sort of expectations?
Yeah, so it's really about them finding their strengths. A lot of times English can be a challenge because it's going to be their second, third, or fourth language. And so reiterating the importance of speaking and written English being really strong and focusing on that, but having them really zero in on what are their strengths and skill sets so that they can differentiate themselves through the interview process, through the resumes, all of that. And certainly that's going to vary. Somebody who's already been working for 10 years, has 2 degrees, they're going to be able to highlight actual work experience versus somebody who's 23 years old, hasn't had a job yet. How do they still showcase skills where maybe they haven't been paid to do anything? And that doesn't mean that they don't have skills. They just need to be a little bit more creative about how they're talking about it and how they're able to demonstrate.
And how has, I haven't, well, I tell a lie. I moved from KPMG and I had to go through a process of applying and sort of, and went through the job route. The job before that was like 15 years ago. How has the sort of the resume, the CV, how has that changed now for the current generation? Is it more? Because I read somewhere that, I can't remember what company it was. It was quite a big company that they just completely scrapped all CVs and they said, look, we want to talk to these people. We want to find out about their experience, their understanding, and their personality more than a list of qualifications, for example. How do you think the sort of job search has changed in maybe the last 10 years or so?
I think there's so much more a focus on, yes, you did that, but what were the results? So state the situation, tell the story. What did you do that impacted things? What were the results that happened? So it's no longer a list of things you did, tasks in your job. It's what was the result of it because you were the person doing that. Making sure you're customizing those cover letters. LinkedIn is extremely important. And so if a lot of students, they're not aware of the importance of that. To me, it's equally as important as a resume. And people are going to go there to check you out and see who you're connected with and all of that kind of stuff. And as well as if they're applying to big banks, some of them are using those automated systems who are looking for the keywords. So making sure your resume is written in the way that people speak and describe things in Canada, not what you maybe put in Google Translate to translate what you might have had in a different language, and making sure you're capturing those keywords from the job description so you can make it through the screening process. But just like anything, it comes down to how can you get to know the employer? How can you understand their strategy? How can you ask questions if you do get to an interview that make you stand out? So it comes back to the basics about being interested, sharing values, wanting to contribute to their strategy. But how do you do that? And how do you teach students to know how to do that when that's not something they're probably aware of yet? Yeah.
Okay. Right. Let's move on to your business. So you are president and chief financial fitness trainer. I love that. I love that explanation. So you've sounds like you've been involved in helping young adults for quite some time, but you created this business specifically to empower young adults and entrepreneurs. So just tell me a little bit about your business and sort of where you sort of position yourself.
Absolutely. So for me, if you think about financial literacy, a lot of times when you hear that term, it kind of puts you back on your heels. It has a negative connotation, and all of a sudden you're illiterate if you don't know about money. And to me, that was always super negative. So I've always been talking about financial fitness. We're all on this journey to improve what we know. Just like physical fitness, we might be taking that first step off the couch. We're going to walk around the block. We might be learning about basic bank accounts. We might be learning about budgeting. Or we could be farther along on this journey where we're going to run and train for marathons, we could be becoming more sophisticated investors. So for me, I see the parallel. Everybody is at a different place, and that's okay. But you do need to start on your journey and take forward steps every day. And that's really the motivation for me. I think that if we can improve financial fitness across the world, it improves every society. It allows people to then have more freedom, flexibility, and choices as they go forward to accomplish their goals. And I don't want money to be a barrier for anybody in hitting the goals that they have for themselves. So that was really the driving motivation. I wanted to keep supporting young people because I think that when you can learn earlier, it changes the trajectory of your life, and you can really focus on the things that matter to you and not be consumed by worrying about money. I've been so passionate supporting entrepreneurs for 20 years. I wanted to make sure that was a piece of it. So it's really a financial coaching and education business. Predominantly for the young adult audience, I support them through my podcast, which is Young Money, the advice show for millionaires in the making. And I think we started our shows around the same time, and I'm doing a weekly show for them. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and we're getting a workbook ready for them that will be out to sell. And the long-term dream for that is to really create content and education that can be sold at a post-secondary level. So it gets delivered by someone else, but the fact that the content is there based on what they need to know. So sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I spend most of my time either doing group coaching or one-on-one coaching with entrepreneurs, really across any industry. And the key is that their sales are somewhere between 100,000 and 2 million, and they have this desire to improve their financial acumen. And I'd love to say that people come to me because everything's going great and they want to improve their skill sets. Usually it's because there's a massive problem. They can't pay their bills. They're not getting paid themselves from the business, and they're really at kind of a crisis point, and they know they need to make a change. So we spend time reading financial statements, teaching them what they mean, understanding their cash flow cycle, creating cash flow forecasts, digging into their pricing, because that's usually the culprit while they're not making any money and why they can't get paid. So it's all around bringing up their acumen, putting more discipline and rigor around monitoring financial results. Even how to communicate with stakeholders around those financial results is the mandate that I bring to them, and it is purely coaching.
Do you help them with their personal finances as well, or is it purely their business finances?
So I'm not a financial planner per se, so I wouldn't create a financial plan, but there's no way to talk about somebody's business when they have sales at those levels where we don't get into the personal. So we're talking about the broader strategies. Usually I would then make, if they have defined things they want to do, I'd probably make an introduction to a financial planner so then they can get a detailed plan for that. But when you're talking about someone's business, there's no way to not talk about it. And the other thing that's important that overarches all of it is usually their money mindset. And so how were they raised? What are the stories they're carrying through their life about money? I mentioned that I loved money since I was a kid and saw it as a tool. That's not most people's lens on money. So whatever was happening when they're 5, 6, 7 years old is what's driving their decisions still. And that can be changed, but bringing their attention to that, and then it can actually open up breakthroughs in the personal and then the business financials.
Do you think schools are failing kids with their financial education?
I do. Yes, certainly in Canada. We see it in the US as well. Can't comment on the UK, but I think that
as well,
okay. I think that every single grade there are appropriate money related lessons. As soon as somebody even goes to stores, we should start talking about money, like going with a grocery list when you're buying your food. Why are we doing that? Yeah, we have to get the things that we need and make sure we don't spend too much money. And so there's age appropriate conversations that can be held. It's also being mindful of in your household how you're coming at the money stuff. So if there's crying or there's yelling or there's whatever is going on, kids are picking up all that stuff. So the school is failing them. And usually then the governments are looking to the parents to fix that problem. And then it kind of perpetuates itself because the parents weren't taught. So how are they supposed to know? So I think the schools should be tackling it in every grade. And there should be kind of mandatory courses before you graduate, kind of life skills. What's a paycheck? What's rent? How do you make a budget? Even in post-secondary, it's pretty crucial as well.
So I can say from the UK perspective, the taboos that we don't really talk about is sex, money, and religion. Why do you think there is such a taboo when it's related to money and sort of people's finances, that they're not taught, they don't talk about it? Because often people don't even, the only experience a child would ever get from knowing about the money in the family might be, as you said, an argument once a month because the cash check isn't coming in, or the whatever the scenarios. Why do you think it is such a taboo subject for people?
Oh, a whole bunch of reasons. So one, it's whatever they were programmed to know from their families. It's also social media is really perpetuating this, that we think we have less than other people. You're looking at everybody's best day when we could travel. Look at that fantastic vacation they went on. Look at their car. Look at how many times they're eating out. Look at their new clothes, homes, whatever it is. That creates a lot of people feeling insecure. The part that people don't know, which I can see behind the scenes, is that we don't know how people are funding these things. Are they one missed paycheck away from not being able to pay their bills? So there's a lot of that. And then sometimes, though, when people actually have wealth and they've worked really hard to create that, they're embarrassed because they don't want people to start attacking them or challenging them and being unkind. And a lot of people will do that, depending where you were brought up, what the culture's like. It can go both ways. So money just has so much negative connotation around it. And I would, from my experience, people would much rather talk about sex and religion than they would about money. So that's really unfortunate. And I think the more we can open up the dialogue, it takes some of that importance away from it. And if we can get a little bit less emotional about it, we can learn. Then we can actually take steps, and we can be using it as that tool, as I mentioned, so that it's not holding all this power over us in our lives.
And I think that money is money is neutral. If you're a good person, you'll still be a good person. If you're a bad person, you'll be a bad person, even with money. But for me, I think money provides options for people. It means that you have choices to make that you might not have if you don't have money. Why do you agree?
Absolutely. Even I hear a lot of women entrepreneurs especially say, I want to just start a little business. And I'll say, okay, well, what if you could make a little bit more money? Let's try to make as much money as you can. Because when you make money, now you can have some choices. You could hire staff. Now you're creating jobs in the community. Maybe then you're not going to work as much. Maybe you can then create offerings for clients that can't afford to pay you. You're going to have pro bono offerings. Maybe you're going to take some of your time or some of your money you're making and actually donate it to charity. And so, or provide for your family, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever that's important to you. But when you have money, just as you said, it gives you freedom, flexibility, and you can make choices to help yourself if you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you can also be helping others around you, whether it be family, friends, or just helping out organizations that you know need assistance. So I'm all for people generating wealth. And then what is it that you do with it to improve your life?
Sorry, I missed it through my notes. So you're an activator for SheEO, which is helping women-led ventures. I wanted to just touch on that. What sort of companies do you work with? How do you help these people?
So SheEO is an organization, was founded in Canada. It's expanded to New Zealand, Australia, the US, and the UK now. And women activators like me, they contribute $1,100. $100 goes to the admin of the organization, and $1,000 goes directly into a pool of money that gets loaned out to women-led ventures. And so the really exciting part is women-owned ventures apply for the funding, and the people who put their money in actually get to vote for who they want to see get the money. And so depending on how much is raised that year, it's typically between 5 to 9 ventures are going to get funded. In Canada, we've hit a perpetual status. It's been around for 6 years. So they're loans, interest-free loans, so the women pay them back. So then the money can be reloaned to another venture. So it's all kinds of different organizations, really covers the gamut. I just interviewed a couple of women on my podcast. One is creating a company for STEM Minds education for the age 6 to 18 bracket, and really about bringing that global. Another has created a shower head where the water can cycle back through. So you're using, and it purifies it. So you're using less water when you have a shower, because ever since she was a child, she was concerned about how much water consumption there was and how it was hurting the earth. So they're usually businesses tied into the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and they're either working on one or several, depending on their businesses. But it's great to be able to support that and actually have a say in who's going to get the money, which I really enjoy.
That's amazing. So you mentioned your podcast a couple of times, so let's talk about that. So it's called Young Money with Tracey Bissett. So what's your podcast? I love to give people a shout out on their podcast.
So it's the advice show for millionaires in the making. It's geared towards 18 to 30-ish in age group, but we've got people of all ages who listen, especially parents and grandparents. I have a lot of old colleagues from the bank who listen because they're trying to see if I can teach them something new. And oftentimes they'll send me a note. But it's about showcasing all the different ways that we can generate wealth in our life. And there's no one path to success. Somebody might have a side hustle. They might be an entrepreneur. They may have a corporate career. And it's teaching them all the kinds of things they need to know. I try to put a fun spin on it. I love music. So oftentimes I will showcase the financial fitness lessons we can learn from a certain artist, like year ago when we had J-Lo and Shakira at the Super Bowl. What can we learn from them? And we can learn about money from everybody. And we can learn the good things and the bad things. So creating an environment where people can learn in an easy to digest format. We've been doing it since December 2017, new show weekly. And we just released, I think, episode 189. So it's really fun and get to meet lots of different people. The listeners as well love to hear from themselves. So we often interview a lot of young people so they can share what they're doing with investing or their side hustle, even a lot of scholarship recipients, because there's still not a lot of knowledge around how can you pay for post-secondary. And it doesn't just mean you need to get laden with student debt. There's lots of other ways to source funds. So it's really fun for me. It's great to be able to make that impact. We're listened to in over 40 countries around the world. So really great.
Yeah, that is exactly the time that I started my podcast, December 17. So
yeah,
that's amazing. It's an enjoyable experience, isn't it? You get to interview great people, and you just, I've got a growth mindset, so I just love to learn from other people's. As I say in my intro, like people's successes and failures. Often you get the lessons from failures just as much as you get the lessons from successes.
It also keeps me really close to things. So I've been learning a lot about non-fungible tokens. We just did a show about that. And I would have been like kind of watching NFTs, but I might not have dug as deep. I'm going to go out and buy one and see what that's all about. And then I share my experience. It was a great way for me to learn about cryptocurrencies. I went out and got a wallet. I had some missteps getting the right wallet in the first place, and then actually buying transactions. Buying crypto, and I actually learned about our banking system and limitations that were actually there to move money from my bank to the wallet to be able to buy crypto, and the protections that were in place. So it's keeping me really close to what's current, and I like that. Just like you, I love to learn.
Because NFTs are a very hot topic at the moment. What's your view on cryptos?
I think that for investing, you want to always come back to your time horizon, your goals, your risk tolerance. If you have the flexibility and your risk allows, I think that there's nothing wrong with having a smaller percentage in your portfolio. But I think that most of the people who are listening to my show and most of the people out there don't have funds that can just be lost if something were to happen. People usually need their money to be able to hit their goals, and they can't take as much risk. So I think anytime anybody's jumping on a hot tip or something their friend told them, I think they always want to check the source of the information and make sure that it's right for them and the goals that they have. I was recently interviewed on a show for gambling addicts, and they were talking about the increase in day trading during COVID and some of the government supports being used to fuel that day trading, and everybody thinking that they can beat the markets. That's developed into a gambling addiction, the day trading. So if you can always bring it back to, am I doing something that's going to help me hit my goals? And usually that's going to be tied into your family. if there's the potential to hurt people or not have the funds when you need something to hit those goals, I think you need to have that second sober thought. And if you need somebody to kind of check you, find an accountability buddy where you can run your idea by them before you jump in, just so that you stay focused on what's important to you.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've set up the Young Money Scholarship Fund last year. So who do you help with that fund?
So the money goes to students who are studying in Canada. They don't need to be Canadian citizens, or they just need to be here for school. And we were fortunate to have enough funds to award small scholarships to 7 deserving individuals. Some were in undergrad programs, some were in graduate programs. But for me, the scholarship is really aligned to the values that I hold and my business holds, being in service of others. So one of the questions in their essays was, tell me a story about how you've helped somebody else accomplish their goals. And then the second was really around, what are your plans for your future? I was interested in, do people have a plan? I know plans change, but just to have a sense of how were they going to use what they were studying. There are so many scholarships out there for people who have an income need, who have really high grades, who volunteer a lot. And there's they've coined the phrase the middle 60%. So not the top 20%, not the bottom, but that middle 60 who doesn't have as much access to scholarships. So if people share my values, I wanted to make funds available to them.
That's interesting, because it's that we call in the UK the silent majority, which often people get forgotten because everyone's looking at the people excelling or the people struggling. That middle band often gets lost in education as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And your family can be a middle-class family, but still be really tight on money. And education is expensive, and I don't want money to be a barrier for people to get education. I think that when you can get further training and skills, then you're going to be able to create wealth in your life. So I'm trying to support that and make that more possible for people. And as the scholarship continues, we hope to grow the amount. Proceeds from the work that I do with entrepreneurs and young adults goes to fund that. And in our first year, even, we had a friend of mine was just so keen on it. He contributed enough for another scholarship. So I was planning to just do 5 small ones, and we ended up with 7 because the quality of the applications were so strong. And we're just getting ready to roll that out again for this year, so we can have some funds available for students starting studying in September.
That is amazing. That really is amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You've also have you started the 12-month money planner? On my reading, you said you're releasing it soon. Has it been released?
Not yet. So shortly. Yes. So it's an easy workbook to use for the young adult audience, and it follows the calendar. So for every month of the year, there is a lesson, and that includes either a template or a worksheet or a tip sheet to help you focus on one of the skills that you would normally use during that month. So for us in Canada, we focus in February very much on our registered retirement savings plan. So putting money away in a tax sheltered way for your retirement. So how do we think about planning for retirement? How do we think about paying down student debt will be another one. Credit cards, and the good and the bad. I mean, just like we've talked about, I don't think money is good or bad. I don't think debt is good or bad. It's all in how you use it. And there is a lot of education required around credit cards. Unfortunately, I see too often when students get on campus for post-secondary, there's companies there ready to sign them up for credit cards, and all of a sudden they've got this debt outstanding that they didn't even know they had to pay back. They thought it was free money. So then their credit score gets implicated in that, and then it creates problems down the road. So all kinds of things like that to give them the tips and tools they need to digest it really quickly, but that can make a meaningful impact in their lives.
So I was just, what you've said about treating money and how people treat money. Something that's just sprung to my mind is like Grant Cardone. Do you know, you must know Grant Cardone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, the sort of cash is trash sort of meme that he's sort of created from that. What's your sort of view on, because he's very much to leverage debt to be able to then invest into assets and properties and blocks and things. How does that, because people are going to be influenced by those types of people all over social media. There's good and there's bad, and there's some people that maybe, but what's your sort of view on that sort of social media bubble that's creating with influencers who are giving out advice in 2 minutes rather than sitting down with someone for an hour to actually understand their situation?
So at a high level, I think the onus is on every person, if you're going to take advice from someone, to understand their credentials. So if you've been following an influencer who talks about vitamins and makeup and fitness, and all of a sudden this week they're talking about trading platforms, you need to ask yourself, what business do they have? What knowledge do they have that makes them credible to start talking about and pushing a certain trading platform? So that's the first thing. Because I find that so quickly people are caught up in these sound bites that they're not doing critical thinking. Again, it comes back to the basics. What are your goals? What is your risk tolerance? What is your time horizon to hit those goals? And if you can stick with the basics, then any decision you're making, you can ask yourself, does this bring me closer to or farther from my goals? I can come across really confident about any subject I want. I could put out a video about cutting hair. I could tell you the best scissors, the best hair products. I could give you instructions about cutting hair, and I have no business doing that. I don't know anything about hair, but there's probably some people out there who might believe me. So it's all in validating that source. And then specifically to Grant, I don't have a problem leveraging debt to hit your goals as long as it's within reason and you're not at that tipping point where it's going to make kind of a house of cards fall and everything kind of collapse. But that again comes back to risk tolerance, and everybody's is different. So I might be more conservative than someone else. I won't judge them if they're still able to live within their means and meet those obligations. So it really comes down to the personal strategies and plans and goals and how that's all going to fit together.
And whatever financial transaction you're doing, it's all down to your own due diligence. Like you can be suggested to do something wherever, finance, school, friends, whatever, but you've got to, it's your responsibility. It's your money. You have to do your own due diligence, don't you?
Exactly. For sure. And if you're not sure how to do that, I think you're not looking very hard. And usually especially on the podcast, I like to give frameworks and questions to prompt yourself. But to say you don't know how or you can't find how is, it's really an excuse. There's never been a better time to learn about money, whether it's business finance, personal finance. There is no shortage of qualified individuals with podcasts or YouTube channels or books. And if anybody's listening right now and wants some suggestions, send me a note after the show, and I'd be happy to refer you to people to follow who have sound, credible advice. Because there is someone out there for everyone, which is important to realize. My style might not be something that resonates with some listeners. And so they can listen to a different podcast and get information that helps them. You should never feel ashamed or stupid or not ask questions. If somebody's explaining things in a way that you don't get, that's okay. Find somebody different. And there's going to be somebody for everyone. So there's really no excuse not to get that knowledge.
100%. We're now in a situation, as you say, books, YouTube, podcasts, Audible. There are so many ways of being able to get that information. I 100% agree. Without
having to pay. And that's the other thing. You don't need to expend money to be able to learn these things. So it doesn't need to cost a lot of money to get quality advice.
Absolutely. How do you think COVID has affected young entrepreneurs? Because I read in the UK that it's impacted, obviously, the elderly because they're more prone to catching it and dying. Equally, the young because they're struggling with getting jobs, with starting careers, with starting businesses. How do you think that dynamic in this shift with COVID is actually impacting the young?
I think it really depends on the person because I've seen so many situations of really inspiring young people who started a brand new business, a side hustle. 2 guests we recently had on the Young Money podcast they recognized that people were not going to be able to go to the store to get food. And they also recognized that local businesses were going to be at a disadvantage when shutdowns were happening. So they live in the town of Guelph, and they started Guelph Box. It's now monthly, but it used to be more frequently as an ordering service where you buy their box of all these different foods and it comes delivered to your house. They went from idea to this in practice in like 3 days. They started a website, they got this going. So that's initiative, that support with people around them. They didn't have any money. So they actually figured out, we're going to get orders first before then we have to pay so that we can actually make this go. They are both now not in Guelph. They're both still pursuing their post-secondary education in 2 other different cities, and they've hired people to keep it going for them, which is amazing. So I've seen a bunch of stories like that. I had another guest who was one of our scholarship recipients. He started up a way to have really easy to get the menus online for businesses who didn't have a good online presence, so that when people were doing their curbside pickup of the food or the takeout, that they could have their menu there. So that came about really quickly. There are other people who are going to say, I'm not going to go to work right now. I'm just going to get those government supports. And I've seen that as well. I even had some challenges getting a tutor earlier this year for one of my classes at school, because people were going to, they felt it was just better to take those government supports than have it clawed back because of the wages they were going to make at the tutoring job. And to me, that's really short-sighted, because the money would be neutral. But the experience and then the potential for recommendations and all of those things that comes from actually working was negated. So I think it is very individual, but I've seen kind of on both ends of the spectrum.
Right. Okay. What's your future plans? What do you sort of plan for 2021, 2022, or in the future?
So really excited this year. We're going to be rolling out more of our group sessions for entrepreneurs, the Cash Control Bootcamp, which is a nice live online way for entrepreneurs to get that comfort around their financial statements, their cash flow cycles, the pricing, how to have those important money stakeholder conversations. So working on that and getting that in a regular rollout. It's at a price point that's affordable for more to join, which is exciting. As I said, the Young Money 12-month planner will be coming out, and then later this year, a cash flow book for entrepreneurs as well. So really excited about that, and keep going with the podcast, keep meeting interesting people and expanding my learning. And we're going to be dedicating some more time to our YouTube channel as well to get more how-to videos there specifically for entrepreneurs, so that when you've got that question and you need that 1-minute answer, you can go there and grab that.
Amazing. Okay, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They are quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. The first one is, what's the best decision that you made?
I would say one of the best decisions I've ever made is deciding to participate in junior achievement in my high school years. It really taught me a lot about business, the way companies are formed. It taught me how to sell. I was very persistent selling door to door, these really crap products. And it was just really what opened the doors for me and cemented that I wanted to go into business.
Amazing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
To have confidence in yourself, even when others are making you doubt that. So to reflect on all of the things you do well and stand confidently in that.
And do you think your confidence came from your upbringing?
I would say some of it, but a lot of it's come later in life. I think I was pretty confident as a teenager. And then when I got into university, I allowed myself to not feel as confident as others around me. Where I went to my undergrad, certainly at Queen's University, a lot of wealthy fellow students who were extremely confident. And I think I allowed myself to step back a little bit there. So my confidence would have dipped. Working in a big organization like TD, 80,000 people worldwide, depending on who you're working for, your confidence can go up and down. So I would say I'm back on the upswing of it. So it's gone in stages over the years.
Okay, thank you. Who's helped you most in your career?
Certainly my parents have been very instrumental in that, like always being supportive, opening doors where they could. And then I've had several really great mentors and bosses throughout my time at TD, one in particular, Mike, who continues to be an advisor to me and very supportive, but also challenges me on ideas and gets me to think about things in a different way. So my parents, and I would say Mike.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any regrets?
Really, I would say that's tied to that confidence piece. So those times when I stepped back. So in between high school and university, I had the opportunity to go on an exchange program, and I started to worry. So I didn't go. I stepped back. Not being as confident in undergrad, certainly I would chalk that up as the same. And just those moments that happen where if you stood firm, where else might you be?
Yeah, absolutely. What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of making this formal commitment through my business, through my podcast, and the scholarship to increasing financial fitness for young adults and entrepreneurs.
And what does legacy mean to you?
What people are going to think about you and say about you when you're not there, and really the lasting impact that's made. And for me, I hope that is an increase in financial knowledge. So more people feel more confident with their money, whether it be in their personal lives or their business.
That's fantastic. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
So absolutely the best place. If anyone has questions or comments, love to hear from you on LinkedIn. So Tracey has an E and Bissett has 2 S's, 2 T's. And I do have a gift for your audience because I know some people are probably inspired to get working on their financial fitness. So it's a money meeting agenda, because if you don't know where to start, you can grab this money meeting agenda and get started today. And they can grab that at cashcoach.biz.
That's brilliant.
So the money meeting agenda at cashcoach.biz.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I would just say what you're doing with young entrepreneurs and young people, I think is incredibly inspiring. And I think that whole piece of money management from a personal finance as well as a sort of business finance, I think is so important. And I think schools are failing. Parents sometimes are failing or not doing as much as they should be. So I just applaud you. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, Mark. It's been so enjoyable to be here with you today.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.